essentially the client called up and said, "We've automated your workflow. Thank you for your service." And I was just like, oh my gosh, I've kind of sold all these promises to all of these women that they're going to have this steady income. And of course I had to figure out how I was going to pay rent. And so, and I think I had been maybe a little cocky, kind of like that it was going so well. And so month 9 through 18 were really tough, cold, hard sales. I had this moment where I was just kind of like, okay, are you committed to this business, Katharine? Are you committed? Like what are you going to do?
So glad that you decided to join us in the studio. I've learned a lot of interesting things about you from these little pieces of paper that we call briefs, and just met you and shook your hand. Super awesome to meet you and to have you here. I hear you're a quadruplet.
I am.
Okay.
So nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I am a quadruplet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Fertility drugs.
Okay, there you go.
My parents had one son. We have an older brother.
Uh-huh.
And they were trying to have a second. And the doctor called them and said, "You're having twins," and then said that you're having triplets, and then said you're having quadruplets. Oops. And so all of a sudden they had 5 kids under the age of 2, which sounds terrifying.
Totally.
But as a kid, so we were known as the Wolf Pack growing up. And it was actually really fun. I mean, we have this amazing footage of us just kind of like, my parents would put us in this like fenced in area and pour Cheerios on the ground. And it's just like all of these kind of like little kids running around animalistically eating. But yeah, I think it was for us, it was very competitive, fun and chaotic.
So I have 4 boys.
Wow.
It didn't happen the same way. And I remember just what it was like having 4 boys under the age of 5. So 5 children under the age of 2. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 is a lot as well.
I would say that your parents need an award.
They do. That is true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what did it feel like growing up? Like was it just like you just had close camaraderie with your brothers and sisters?
Yeah, well, I was actually the only girl, so I have an older brother, and then there are 3 of us in the set. Yeah, I mean, we're still really close. It's pretty special to go through life kind of like doing the exact same thing at the exact same time.
Yes.
I'm sometimes jealous of single births, that they like got to have that experience with their parents. But like we had this like whole crew, and we'd always like play football together or whatever. I was a total tomboy.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. Well, how do you feel like that that lifestyle and that experience affected you professionally?
I think it did affect me professionally quite a bit. Obviously, when you're in kind of a set of quadruplets, well, I think I was forced to learn how to be self-reliant very early on. I had to fight for my rights and quite literally my space from the womb.
Are you competitive?
I am pretty competitive. I mean, I'm both, but I think like I had to be to survive. And in our family, and you probably have this with your kids, but it was really important for us to all be different. And so it was this really intense desire to be unique. And so I spent a lot of time trying to figure out, okay, I'm the only girl, but like, what else am I? Like, what are my strengths and weaknesses? And kind of like trying to figure out very early on, what is my purpose? Like, why am I here? And so I think it like then led to this kind of like quest of mine to connect to that, maybe be more open to less traditional career paths. Also being the only girl was pretty wild.
Yeah.
I remember being very aware of kind of the like gender from very early age, 5, 6, 7, where my brothers would do something and then I would do the same exact thing, and then we'd have different outcomes. And sometimes it was to my benefit and sometimes it wasn't. But I remember just thinking, wow, why is that? Like there was just like a different set of messaging. And so that awareness I can kind of like directly relate to my career path because just kind of like that question around gender has been in a lot of the things that I've done, and certainly connects me to the mission behind the company that I've built.
I love that. Tell us about Odetta. Like, what has the gig economy done, and how have you sort of connected to it and done something meaningful with it?
Sure.
Like that, with that kind of rising,
Yeah, gig economy is amazing. So as most people know, they've interacted with it in their day to day, but it's essentially just a digital platform that connects freelancers, contractors with their customers. And so I took an Uber today and, had a driver, and I've stayed in Airbnb, and I have a host. And what Odetta does, and I can share a little bit more about why we do it, but essentially it connects a network of these data analysts and account managers with tech companies. And so using the internet to facilitate those connections.
Yeah, and is it through like an app?
It's not
website?
An app, it's just like a kind of website.
Okay, all right, very interesting. Well, what's a typical freelance project for an Odetta freelancer?
Yeah, so we are usually sourcing and cleaning data. So a very common request from our clients would be, hey, I need a customer list. So maybe they're building a business and they want to know, I'd love to have 1,000 companies that look like this that I can do sales and marketing on. Or they maybe want a list of social media influencers or anyone that can help them like grow. And so we'll build them that database of those companies with all of their contact information. We also do quite a bit of what's called data annotation, and I didn't know what this was before starting the company, but a lot of these tech companies are doing what's called machine learning, which is a type of artificial intelligence. And so to build these models, they need what's called ground truth data, and that often requires a lot of humans to be tagging and labeling and classifying data. And so we do quite a bit of that for our companies.
So you do the legwork to get them started?
Yes.
Okay. That's really cool. Well, how do your customers find you, and what kind of customers are they?
So I would say now it's a lot of word of mouth or existing customers that maybe they change companies and then they will hire us. We also do B2B sales on a typical type of customer, but they're mostly tech companies, kind of early 10 to 50 people, and they're looking for help. They may have been running these processes already in-house, and they're at a point where they're looking to find a team that can run them more cost effectively.
Okay. That's I like the call out to the machine learning, because the thing that's most interesting is you can start to acquire the data machine learning wise, but I like how what you said, what type of
ground truth.
Ground truth.
Yeah.
To aggregate all of that, I think is really important, and just how invasive or how how much human energy is being put into getting that machine learning started.
Just so much.
It's really interesting.
It's like the future is really about, there's all of these kind of like bots and artificial intelligence, but actually a lot of people say all these jobs are going to be lost, but more jobs are actually getting created through all of the machine learning.
It's incredible. It's the jobs are changing, really.
They really
just
are.
Different jobs.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, okay. Candidly, I've been a user of Fiverr, and I've been a user of Upwork.
Yes.
So, it used to be Odesk and a couple of others. So
sure. I've heard of them.
Yeah, I'm sure. So how are you different? How's your group different than those other apps?
Okay. So at highest level, we're team-based and project managed. And then we have a specialization in data, and then we have a mission that I'll talk about. But if you've used any of those, it's pretty similar. Kind of like you go to Upwork or Fiverr, you post a project, and within seconds, it's pretty incredible. You have hundreds of people who are bidding for that project. And what you do is then you go through and you might interview people or find like the best person, best designer, whatnot. And then you would be managing them and checking their work. And the quality can be really good. You can get lucky, or it can be very inconsistent. So with Odetta, you just post a project. And then what we do is we kind of figure out the rest. So we'll build a team. We connect you with an account manager, and then that account manager will kind of build the scope of work, build the team, run the team, manage the team, and kind of run that workflow for the client.
Oh, that's interesting. So instead of like the system and the application, because that's what I'm used to, is this, it's basically infrastructure and no oversight,
right,
with Fiverr, and it's just this open marketplace.
Hopefully it works. And it's amazing. There are a lot of types of jobs where that's exactly where you want to go, because you have a very specific thing and you want the best in the world and you want them to all be competing for that job. Other things, though, that, there's just like a certain way that it needs to get done. And why not also, as part of that infrastructure, have a team that is checking the quality and training the team, because it should save you time. And so we work, most of our clients, like they want the cost effectiveness, but they also just don't want to be managing the team.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel like, so your work quality and oversight is a big part of what you guys are doing, but then at the same time, the inspection and the outcome is largely better because of your capabilities?
I think so, especially when it becomes specialized. If we've done something hundreds of times over and over again, then we start to have software and tooling around it and templates. And so you can kind of just go there and know that it's going to be a certain level of quality and you don't have to worry about it.
Okay. That's really interesting. So you mentioned the mission thing. Why don't you, how did you kind of realize this opportunity, and how was the mission sort of born?
Yeah, so I should say that I was on the hunt for a startup idea for many years. I was really on the hunt. I had been working at a tech company and was working on a number of different ideas on the side. And I wanted to build something in the female economy space. And what that means is I wanted to build products and services for women that didn't exist yet because there was some sort of market bias or failure. And so, and I was looking for something that could be kind of a large technology company.
Yeah.
And I happened to meet someone who was on the board of Upwork. And he shared with me, or really kind of pointed me in the direction of the gig economy. And I did some research and I realized that 75% of the women getting educated in the Middle East and South Asia were not working. They were not working in the kind of like the labor pool, but they weren't also on these freelancing platforms. And so right away, when I learned that stat, I was like, wow, there must be something wrong with work. And that then meant that hundreds of millions of women who were fluent in English, kind of super qualified, had just kind of disappeared. And so I started thinking about that and really wondering why. And then somewhat fortuitously, 2 weeks later, I was at a class reunion and I was catching up with a classmate of mine who grew up in Pakistan. And she helped me answer that question of why. Essentially what we did was we posted on our Facebook page. It was just a very simple message. If you're, highly ambitious and looking for kind of remote work, sign up here. And within 48 hours, we had something like 300 women sign up to our little Facebook,
That's
kind
amazing.
of sign up. And these women were from some of the best MBA programs in Pakistan, the PhD programs. But we also had women from Turkey and Oman and Jordan. And so I was floored. And I was like, gosh, there is something here. And then my next step was, I want to go meet these women in person.
Okay. So yeah, it's like a lot of your travels, right? Like what was kind of the most impactful trip for you to make this discovery, right? In Asia?
Well, I must say that I had spent time in Asia and some time in the Middle East, but I had never been to most of the countries that I was all of a sudden looking at, which were places where women were highly educated and not working. And so Pakistan was an obvious kind of next one. But in terms of going there, so I still had a job. So I wanted to just kind of take vacation and, organize a visit. And so that's what I did. I started getting a tourist visa and planning a trip.
Okay. And what happened on the first trip?
So first I had to kind of answer the question, was it safe for me to go? And I got really mixed reports on that. I reached out to a number of people who were either from there or who had friends who lived there or worked there. And I would say this is where I was like less data motivated. Most people said I was not safe or mixed. And so I just ended up listening to the people who said it was safe. I found a few people who said it was completely safe to go. And so I got a tourist visa. It took me 3 or 4 months to get a visa to be able to go. And I'll never forget, I landed on, it was a flight from Doha to Islamabad. And on the flight, there were a ton of foreigners. I was, kind of feeling relieved because prior to going, I had to turn my phone off because I had so many people who were concerned about my safety trying to intervene. And essentially, the air hostess started calling up names. And pretty quickly, all of the foreigners, non-Pakistanis, were called up, and they were escorted to these armored vehicles and kind of like sirens, and then they were off. And I was left on the plane, and I was by myself visiting with the tourist visa. And so I was, wow, oh no. And so I went to the airport, and there was a line for a tourist visa, which was empty. So it was just me. And my ride was late, an hour and a half late. I arrived really late at night. So I was just kind of standing in the airport being like, what am I doing? But ultimately, I'm so glad that I listened to those people who told me that it was safe, because it was safe. And I think certainly if you're kind of like traveling in the way that I was traveling. And so I ended up just staying in this hotel and meeting all of the women who had applied to this Facebook post. And I met hundreds of women, and they were amazing. I mean, it was just like these super smart, like very humble, just really wanting to kind of like work really hard. And I think the thing that struck me about every single conversation that I had with these women was just like, they just wanted to prove to the world that they mattered. And there was this intensity about it. And I was like, oh my God, like I need to help connect them to the broader market because they are suffering. I should say that Pakistan is the 3rd worst place in the world to be female. I heard their stories and was listening to just kind of like the harassment that they were experiencing in the office, on the bus. They were getting fired because they were pregnant. They were getting not hired because one day they may be pregnant. They would get their doctorate degrees because education is very valued. And the in-laws would say they could not work. So there was still like this very significant stigma around being a working mother. It was very much get educated and then have your children and then serve the family, move in with the in-laws. And so I was listening to them. Obviously, we come from such different places,
different cultures, for sure.
But like there was just something there. I felt like, wow, I want to build something to help them. Wow.
That's a pretty wild story. I just want to confirm, you were on the plane going to Pakistan.
Yes.
Was it when you landed that everybody was escorted off?
Yes, all of the other non-Pakistanis. No, it was when I landed.
And why were you left?
Well, because I was rogue. I mean, I wasn't affiliated with like the World Bank or any of these other places that had gone, kind of like in a very organized manner with their security, because most people go with like their security protocols. But I was there just to test the waters.
Yeah, seems serendipitous, right? For you to be the only person to be able to get through like that.
Yeah.
And so you had you met hundreds of women that happened to find this Facebook group post that was basically a poll, you know, hey, so if you're interested, kind of like, fill this out. And you went to go meet all of these women.
Yes.
And so what was that meeting like? Are you in a big building, and there's just hundreds of women there, or did you have like individual interviews, or did you like host an event?
No, I didn't. I mean, it was kind of more casual. It was a bunch of one-on-ones. They were like organized every like half an hour or something.
Got it. And did you have someone help you?
Yeah. So the same classmate who had helped me place this on our Facebook page, she happened to be in Pakistan at the time. And so we just kind of were sitting in the hotel lobby, and then every hour or so, a new woman would get dropped off by her family, and they would kind of run in and then tell us the story. And so we had a particular format where we were kind of just asking them about their lives. And then at the end, we actually had these kind of note cards that we were keeping that was kind of a list of the things that they were talking about that was important to them, because we were kind of on a design trip. I mean, I was trying to figure out like, okay, like what do they care about? Why does the thing that they need not exist? And what is that thing? You know, I had no idea. You know, I'd never done anything like this before. So those meetings were really informative. I mean, obviously on an emotional level, I was like, okay, I'm going to help them.
Yeah.
But also these women knew what they wanted. So it was kind of pretty clear what we needed to build.
That is so awesome to hear how that kind of got off the ground and got started and how many conversations you were able to have. I think, so you're working, where were you working at the time? And you're taking a vacation to go do this, right?
Yeah.
And what happened after?
I was working. I was at a fintech company and I was running sales for them. And I kind of just went back to my job, but I was living in New York at the time. But during that trip, something changed. I realized that like I would build this company. I didn't know when or how or what that looked like. So I ended up deciding to stay around for about 9 months so I could earn more money.
Okay.
So I could have more of a runway, and I wanted to wait for my bonus. And so I kind of did that, but it was a really hard time for me because I was like already on to the next thing.
Yeah, you're torn.
Running this team. And so that was a really tough time where I was like trying to do both, but I didn't want to tell anyone that I was leaving just yet. And but I decided to really just like go on this adventure. I quit my job. This is 9 months later. Got rid of my things and I moved to the country of Jordan.
Oh my goodness.
Which
what made you pick
kind
Jordan?
Of random, but I had never really kind of known much about the country of Jordan. It's a beautiful country. So it's Pakistan.
Yeah.
Truth is, I had met someone who was from Jordan. I'd been connected to her. And she, while I was thinking about this idea, it's funny how like once you have an idea, just like all of these people start to appear in your path. Maybe you're more open to it. But I had all these different kind of like teachers or helpers who started appearing for me. But one of them told me, you should go to Jordan and I can introduce you to a lot of people there. And so I said, okay, why not? And Jordan's interesting because 90% of the women who get educated, and more women than men get educated, they drop out right after that education. And it's a pretty safe country. So I know I could kind of like just walk around and ask questions. And so that's what I did. I rented an Airbnb.
Except the borders.
Yeah, you're kind of like in the mix of, there's a lot going on. But yeah, just such generous people. And I rented this Airbnb and I was going around to the local universities and just kind of like meeting people and trying to figure out, really my question was, I knew that there were really smart women and I kind of had an idea for maybe what we would build, but I didn't know yet what skill set to focus on. Like, should we do design? Should we do computer science? And so I just was asking those questions. And it was awesome time. I learned a lot. I think meanwhile, I was also trying to figure out the demand side, essentially, the clients, like who would pay for this. And I had been working in tech. So I knew I had a number of friends who worked at tech startups. I love people who work at tech startups. I think that it's a lot of people who are, I wanted to kind of sell to tech startups because I thought that they would be very open-minded about something like this. And they need work to get done. I mean, they are moving fast. And so I ended up having a number of conversations with people who worked at these startups and asked them what kind of thing or service would they be interested in outsourcing. And really at the time it was very clear all roads led to data. It was kind of like the people were talking a lot about machine learning, artificial intelligence, data science. And so I thought, okay, well, we're going to build something that's going to be in service of that industry.
That's so interesting because I would say, so any type of marketplace, right? So I think that's another thing that would be really good to talk about is agency.
Yes.
Versus marketplace. right? Would you consider Odetta more of an agency or more of a marketplace?
More of an agency.
Yeah.
We're what's considered a managed marketplace.
Okay. Because the marketplace effect is so hard to start because you have to draw talent and demand at the same time. And that point of convergence is really hard to manage. And crossing the chasm into scale is like a really, really hard one. Yeah. So you're trying to get kind of initial demand, and you've got a hunch and likely the talent pool that you've assessed.
Yep.
That's like, okay, so data and data management. So talk to me about that point of convergence, how you sort of thought about this business model and how it was born.
I mean, it is interesting. I read a lot about marketplaces and was a bit intimidated by just like the intensity of capital that seemed to be required. And I kind of thought, well, let's just like try to be useful for a few groups of people. And I thought a little bit less. I was like, okay, I'm gonna not focus as much as like the grand vision of like this is what we're gonna do to build the world, but or change the world. It was a little bit more, what is a model that we can use to just kind of earn revenue and get started? And what's the simplest way to get started? And so for that, it was actually pretty simple. We just needed a client, and then we needed a team, and then we would kind of manage the oversight of that. And I will say also that the team, most of the women that I had met did not want to work directly for clients. They didn't want to be in contact with kind of like foreign people or men or anything. So I knew that there was going to be a massive workforce that was going to be behind the scenes, and that it had to be kind of this managed model.
Okay. So talk to me about how you land your first deal and start to, what are some of the discoveries you make on that first deal?
Yeah. So you always remember your first deal. I was still in Amman. I was still kind of spending my days recruiting talent, talking to talent. But I had posted on my Facebook page, just kind of, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And a classmate of mine from college reached out and said, hey, I work at this mental health company, and we need leads. Can you do lead generation for us? And I was like, 100%. My background had been in sales. Yeah. So he got on the phone and explained what he needed to do. And I said, fantastic. And so I ended up calling one of the women that I had met when I was in Pakistan, and her name is Aruj. And I had kept her warm this whole time, but it had been about a year since I met her. And I said, hey, it's go time. Are you ready? And she said, yeah, I'm ready. And so
that is amazing.
It was just legal contracts for both sides. And then we were off to the races. It was just like that.
That's incredible. So you basically, you're using social media and using Facebook, right, to get connections. How did you start to create maybe a more of a flow of demand?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's tough, right?
Yeah. You're talking to somebody who that is like my passion is demand gen, right?
Yeah,
so
demand gen.
Revenue marketing is where I cut my teeth in marketing.
Yeah,
sure.
It is hard, and I think it is the most important. I will say that first 6 months, I was surprised with how much traction we got. Mostly through Facebook and LinkedIn, just kind of like posting the concept. People would send us cold contracts. And so that was awesome. It was mostly through kind of like personal connections or, frankly, social media. Mm-hmm. We got Google as one of our clients. Like I was going after some big names for the first 6 months just because I wanted to be
So you're going enterprise sales. You're definitely trying to close deals.
Not that I thought that was the best thing for Odetta, but once you can say, hey, we work with Google, then people are like, oh, you work with Google. And so
it's a credibility thing.
It is. And so our second client was Google. And that was just like one of the best days of my life when I got that contract. It was week 3 of the business. And so from there, it was just, okay, we work with Google. And then it was kind of like reaching out to other people who worked at different companies. And quickly, I realized that the entire business was predicated on our ability to do this. And so I moved to San Francisco to kind of double down.
Yeah, and be in the community. Yeah. Well, that's interesting to hear, like, just proximity for you, right? Where you went to the other side of the world, right, to build the talent pool. You got initial demand, and then you moved to the other side.
Yeah, exactly. And it turns out, I
demand.
mean, imagine me building this during the pandemic. I mean, you could have just done it without going anywhere. But for me, it was very important to be authentic in the beginning and actually live where we were trying to serve. And then ultimately, I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Like, I actually know how to find all of these women through Facebook, and just felt like I had to be there in person and just kind of like be taking people out to coffees.
Well, so are you still in San Francisco?
I'm not. No, that was about a year of my life.
That was about a year? Okay. Well, what happened there? Like, did you land more deals? Did you get a different level of traction?
We did. I will say it was the first time that I was paying rent. So I got my first apartment. I mean, I was kind of like paying rent in Amman, but I just happened to be, for the first however long, 9 months, it was just kind of very inexpensive for me. And so revenue looked good. So month 6 through 9, I was pretty impressed with what we were doing. And then I moved into my apartment in the marina in San Francisco. And week 2 of moving in, we lost our biggest customer. The contract got terminated. It was 75% of our team working for this one customer. And so we had 50 people at the time. And so the contract, essentially the client called up and said, we've automated your workflow. Thank you for your service. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I've kind of sold all these promises to all of these women that they're going to have this steady income. And of course I had to figure out how I was going to pay rent. And so, and I think I had been maybe a little cocky, kind of like that it was going so well. And so month 9 through 18 were really tough, cold, hard sales. I had this moment where I was just kind of like, okay, are you committed to this business, Katharine? Are you committed? Like what are you going to do? And I think it was then that I realized, like, yes, even if I have to move in back with my parents, if they would have me, or get another job and just delay the whole thing by 5 years and just kind of be doing nights and weekends, I was just like, I'm going to build this company. I need, but there's certain things that you need, like from a cash flow perspective. Yeah. And so I was like signing up.
You're bootstrapping the whole time right now?
Whole time.
Okay.
And so I signed up for every kind of like gig economy job I could. Like I was like dog walker, all of these other things. And I started doing that. And then I was like, wait, hold on. My background was in sales. The best use of my time is just to do sales. So I'm so sorry, Katharine, you just have to do sales. And I had to just almost drop the ego and just get comfortable with reaching out to people, even if it seemed a little bit desperate. Like I just had a lot of reserve around using my, all of my social capital, all these people that I knew, and going around and, asking for their help. But a friend of mine actually was really helpful in helping me see this. And she was like, you're giving them an opportunity to be part of something amazing. And don't ever forget that. And I was like, okay, I'm giving them an opportunity to be part of something amazing. And so here we go. And so I sent thousands of emails and was just in every lobby. I remember this one meeting, I was in this kind of fancy lobby of a Silicon Valley tech company, and I'd written to 5 classmates who worked there. And I think 2 had replied. And then the 3 who didn't reply, I saw one of them, he ducked his head behind the printer when he saw me. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I am this snake peddler selling this dream. What have I done? But, in sales, there's these really embarrassing stories.
Yes.
But then there are the amazing ones, right? And that's what makes it great. You just start to get good at rejection. Mm-hmm. And I think what I learned from that whole kind of 9-month experience, it was really hard, was just the power of recurring revenue. Mm-hmm. People had told me that before, but yes. I think any business, it's right. Why sell something once if you can kind of invent something that someone will buy multiple times and really be kind of much more targeted? And so I started really focusing on recurring revenue. there were two other things that were amazing from like that kind of harder time, which I realized we were super resource constrained. And so with that, I think like you become really kind of almost smarter, and you come up with these, like your model gets better in some weird way. Because we didn't have cash, we just got really focused on our customers, and we just kind of like, if they didn't like it, they wouldn't buy more. And so we were just like so in tune with what they wanted. And I think we ultimately built a team that just like nailed exactly what they wanted, because like we had to.
Yeah.
We didn't want them to stop working with us. And then the second thing was, and this is still month 9, so I didn't know what kind of business I was building yet. I knew that I had a mission, but there was a chance that I could have gone the whole Silicon Valley route, which is like, okay, go and peddle yourself to angel investors and go get a CTO and go get this fancy Silicon Valley team. And we didn't have cash, and something inside of me just didn't want to do any of that. And I just decided, let's just build a team that is run by the people that we're serving. And so what that meant was we weren't going to hire anyone in Silicon Valley, in the US at all. What if we could build a team where every single role, sales, marketing, ops, dev, was an Odettan, one of the women that we're trying to find in these regions that, where they're being overlooked. And we did that because that seemed like great from a mission perspective, but more so from a cash flow perspective. And that was really the best thing that we ever did, actually. That's
amazing. That's a real commitment to your vision and your mission. So I just want to unpack just for a second. The discovery of your mission to getting it off the ground, getting initial traction, and then you have an explosion, right? You lose a big client, and you really had a crucible moment about whether or not you were going to recommit to your mission. And even though you didn't necessarily, I didn't hear you say like, I don't know if I want to do the mission anymore. It's like the business of it, right? You were still committed to the mission. But like, talk to me through like, what are the things that are going through your mind, and how did you sort of muster the recommitment and all of what that meant to kind of pull yourself out of that and really get to a place of a second round of traction?
Yeah.
What were the things that were going through your mind? What were some of the challenges? What were the hard days?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough, right? I think the good days are easy, and then the tough days are really hard, because then you just have to like try harder. And I think for me, I don't know. I mean, I knew I just kept going back to the mission, to our purpose, to why we were doing this. And ultimately I realized like it wasn't really about me building something fancy that I had to kind of look at and be like, okay, I'm proud of this. Like I was like, how can I be useful to these women? And by the way, there's 50 of them right here. So we're this team, need to figure something out. They were kind of like all looking to me to figure something out. And so I just went to the basics, like, okay, what do I know how to do? I was like, I know how to write emails.
Yes.
At a very basic level, and I can make phone calls, and I can drive to a place where I see that there are people who are working, and I can sit in a lobby, and then I can explain our idea, and not in any kind of like formal pitch manner, but like really asking people for advice, and just kind of like, I know how to do that over and over again. And I know how to do that even if everyone is looking at me with like this like hint of embarrassment for me. And I just kind of like did that over and over again without getting too fancy. I wasn't like, all right, I'm gonna go figure out all of these things that I don't know how to do and experiment on all these new things. Like I was like, what are the basics? Just build that list.
I love that. I think anybody with the story that like any type of entrepreneur story, the number of punches that come along the way that can throw you completely off balance. A lot of people will end up giving up. Mm-hmm. What do you think was the thing that was installed in you that kept you going?
I think it's true. I think back to even that trip to Pakistan when I had everyone telling me, like logically you shouldn't go. I think in the beginning, you have to have already said that you're listening to yourself, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like if in those moments when you're building a business, if like there's an ounce of you, or even let's say most of you that's building it for maybe someone else, then you maybe would listen to the voices outside. But I had been so focused on like, why am I here? Like, what is my skill to give? Like, what is my purpose? And then had been set before me these things that intuitively I was like, yes, yes, yes. Like, so I had this path that made sense for me. It wasn't just kind of a random thing that I was doing. And so because of that, then when an obstacle presents, and maybe this is going back to younger years, but it was like I kind of had an ethic of, okay, just kind of like figure out, go around the obstacle, keep on trying,
Yeah, your resourcefulness kicked in.
Yeah, resourcefulness kicks in. And I think, but that connection to why. And so that's why when I hear people starting businesses and I'm really interested in what is their motivation? And it's not that it doesn't have to be like, okay, the thing that you thought you would do from birth. Like, no one has that. I mean, some people do, but
yeah, maybe.
Right. It is that you've connected to your why, and in a very kind of like fundamental way. And so that then nothing can stop you because you have a will. And I also had removed some of the ego around like why I was doing it. So I didn't need things to happen in a certain way or at a certain timeline. Like I didn't need a company to come in and validate me. I didn't need a lot of things. I didn't need. I had a group of people that I wanted to serve. And I felt like I had been given so many things and I had so many sets of experiences that I was dying to have the opportunity to prove myself. Like I had wasted away so many years working at someone else's company that like this was like a carnal need. Like Odetta was like something that was deep inside. Like I had to build it.
Yeah. I think something that is really unclear for a lot of people, like when you're talking about what I really feel like you're pointing at is you got to a place of an authentic understanding of your purpose. Because if you think about it, everybody knows I need a mission. It's like any company, it's like, well, what's your vision, mission, and your values? Right? Three words. And then it's like, well, what's the difference between a mission and a vision? And people struggle with that. But I think this real authentic understanding of your why is really important, because if you have a mission, I'm going to say there's probably more, but the two most clear directions that you could go with the mission is a gimmick or a cause.
Right.
And I think that where people that will continue with their gimmick and it's their hook and it's their shtick and it's not really a mission, but they say that that's their mission. What I feel like what you were able to do is you had an undeniable experience that ratified your cause and you built a business around that. And that, because you did it, there's not one moment that you've been like, I questioned my mission.
No.
Because you had really gotten the authenticity out and the ego and all the kind of stuff that you'd been able to get out. I think that's a really important thing for entrepreneurs, especially people who are just starting, or people in that crucible moment, to go like, let me in an authentic way question my why. Right. And what do you think is like, maybe the thing that pressure tested your why the most in your story?
It's constantly pressure tested because I think there's so many different ways to build a business. And if you listen to the outside world, they tell you that these are the steps. And then you have to just continually go back to your why. So we decided not to take funding because I was concerned about the impact of that on our mission. I wanted to build this very healthy organism of Odetta without any intervention. And I think it was really important for me to build something that didn't have people inside being like, go optimize this. And we don't care about your mission. I know that you can get, there's a whole kind of ecosystem of great investors who will support you in your mission. But I just knew instinctively that I had to build a company that had no foreign intervention. And I think so the moment, and there was a moment when I was looking at term sheets and
you said no to
I just said no. And there was a moment when we had that.
That's a pressure tested moment.
That's a moment. We had another moment where we had this incredible woman who, went to this fancy school and she wanted to work for our company based in the US, and her mission was not aligned. I could just tell that she wanted to join us for other reasons other than our mission. And so we said no. And so every step of the way, it is like, I almost feel like it's like you have to kind of like really protect it with the people inside, and like from the outside world, it's just full of distractions. And so funding was a big one. But then also just like even more recently, we have like all sorts of questions around, let's say we earn more income, where does that money go? And who owns a company? And so it's like, thinking about that alignment for our business is something that I think about all of the time. Like I'm not really motivated to build a business where there's just a few people who get wealthy. Like ultimately, like I want to build a company where, if the first 300 people on our team, if they can become millionaires, like that's my mission. Like in more ways than one, like I want to build a business that where all of our extra income goes out and supports the communities. Like it's really mission oriented.
Who is, excuse me, who is somebody that comes to mind when you say the word, one of the first 300 to become a millionaire? Who is somebody that comes to mind, and what do you think it means for them, and what does that do to you inside?
Yeah, amazing. Like I feel like, it's like I could die happy. Like that is what I want. All of them, I see all of their faces right now, and it's like, I feel emotional. Like they trusted me. I went into this like very foreign country where I knew no one, and who knows who I was? It could have been like in the CIA. It could have been anyone. And the truth of it is that we got hundreds of women from all over the world to just make a promise and to each other. And for many of them are just kind of like working so hard, and we're still bootstrapped. And so there's a lot that I can't yet do for them. We want to pay more. We want to have all sorts of services for them to completely, lead these extraordinary lives. And not just for them, I also want to build a forever company. And so we are thinking about like, okay, like what do we need to get to the next level? But when I see all of their faces, many of them have just been with us since the beginning. And that I will be so happy when one day they all become very wealthy in many different ways. Yeah.
Well, what would be something that you think would be how, like I think one of the things I'm trying to get to with you is your measurement of success. How could you describe like we are successful when? Like, what is an event that would happen or an impact that would have occurred that you're like, I at least did phase one. Not that success means the end, but like, what is sort of like, I did it.
It's so interesting. So when I first started the company, I had these like weird metrics that I set for myself. Weird in the sense that they just seem so arbitrary. I was like, I want to build a platform for 1 million women so we can kind of like have 1 million women working simultaneously. And that was kind of absurd. And I realized like, why 1 million? Like, what about 100,000? What about 10,000? And then ultimately I was like, I will feel successful if I build a company for 1,000 women and if they are all happy and we're kind of like transforming their lives. And the greedier part of me would like that to be more like 10,000 and then have that kind of like, I'll feel really good about that number. So it's, it's an arbitrary number, but the 10,000 number is one that I know that we can get to by ourselves. In other words, like this independent company, it's just kind of me and the Odettans, and we're going to build this business without any foreign intervention. And I think we can get to that number.
What are 3 things that you need to, I would say, make it a forever company? What are 3 big things that you feel like you need to make it a forever company?
I think,
and not a company that just gets acquired, because your mission goes away, right? In a big way.
Yeah, it is like you need, what is that? And I haven't figured that out yet. It's like kind of like what's like the structure of a business that can live forever and kind of continue its values? Like, what does that look like? Who owns it? Who's running it? You know, what, like, so it's kind of like a corporate governance structure. And thinking about some of the family businesses that are really amazing, that have been around, and like, how do you kind of like build that forever? Probably number 2 is a real career trajectory. In our model now, we have kind of like built out a place that's great for, you know, let's say 5 years of work, but like, how do we build a business? Like our Odettans, that's what we call them, Odettans, and they're asking us like, Katharine, can you please build this so I can work here forever, and so that my daughter can work here one day?
Wow.
And they're asking that from us. And so we need to figure that out. So that's number 2. It's like, okay, like, what does a business look like where it's kind of the opposite direction that the world is going, where you only go someplace for 1 year, but where you can have kind of all of those phase levels of learning. And then probably 3 is like the learning machine. And so it's like, you know, kind of like continuing the culture of learning such that, you know, in 50 years, we will not be doing what we do today. I mean, I think even in 10 years, like we are in between kind of human and the machine. And so we're the bridge. And so we're going to be continually iterating. And so how do you kind of instill that in the culture of the business?
So when do you sort of make a discovery on a new capability, right? So you're doing the machine learning, you're doing a lot of data centric stuff. What is sort of a new capability that you got to go drive demand for, right? And then also have to have the talent pool for? What's kind of the next big one for you guys?
We typically just listen to our customers on that. So they meet our team and they're like, this is great. Okay, build me this. And so in that way, our customers are building the future of artificial intelligence. And so they're kind of like telling us where to go. And so I would say that we're more of a listening machine. I think the world of data science and kind of machine learning is very interesting. It still does require a lot of human intervention, but we would like to be that business that is able to handhold these companies, smaller businesses that don't have the resources that these big tech firms do, to be able to do some of these smarter tooling around data. And so that's probably the direction, is just kind of a little bit upstack.
Well, what is something that you're like, we have to avoid this, or what is something that you feel like is a future risk that you want to design a way to avoid that in the future?
Like in terms of types of work?
Yeah, just for the trajectory of the business, or, you know, it could be types of work. What is sort of like, what is the risk out there that would keep you from getting to the next step?
Yeah, I mean, we're that bridge, right, between humans and artificial intelligence. And so if we don't move fast enough, we get automated. And that happens all the time with our workflows. And so that's a big risk, which is like kind of like, how do you stay ahead of that? And I think a lot of the ways we do that is through software. And so we're kind of like learning software. And so something gets automated, and then, you know, but then we're kind of like running the process to build the next kind of human project.
Okay.
So that's what we're doing to prevent against that.
Yeah. So like, are you, because one of the ways that, you know, your workflows get automated is if you share your workflows that you've designed, right? So do you do any, you know, intellectual property sort of protection or things like that as you guys, you know, algorithms are patentable. I have a patent on an algorithm. Okay. Yeah. So like, I know that those are patentable, and it's largely a process. Yeah. It's the way data matriculates through a process, right? Yeah. It's a sequence of events. So are you doing anything to sort of protect the intellectual property that you and your team create?
We have some, yeah. And it is, I think, like kind of like maybe doing more of that. A lot of times our clients are building kind of the IP and then we're the team that is support. But in the vision in the future, it would be that we have a set of kind of like building blocks and patentable technology that then we're sharing with other customers that don't have the resources to build that.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. Well, what's next for you guys?
Yeah. So I try to think about kind of like what do we want this year? And then we have a more kind of like existential longer term question. It's like, what does Odetta look like? And how do I imagine it where it's not so reliant on kind of like me or my role. And then it's just like a machine that runs. This year, we're trying to get to 500 people, so 500 Odettans. And that's like, will then get us maybe next year closer to our 1,000 goal. And so we're hiring a lot. We hire 25 to 50 new people every month. And so we're doing a lot on the hiring. And I think on that front, there's a lot of kind of boot camps that we are building that we can build to get people ready to work faster. One of the things that is most exciting to me is, so we have a 10,000 person waiting list for our company. And that's both amazing and really sad. I think that a lot of the people that are waiting for work, it's just kind of like a few simple tweaks where they would be able to participate in the market if kind of like either they had that training or they had that just like that first experience or that first person who took a chance on them. So how do we build that? Like for them. So we have kind of our vetted work platform, but then like what are the learning organisms that can then help these women get ready and get connected?
So you have 300, you're going to 500 and you've got a waiting list of another 10,000. And so and these are all similar skill sets, yes? Or it's maybe varying degrees of the skill set, because that's what you were saying is that like, we don't know how great some of these people are, but largely there's probably a, low to very high capability of skills in the realm of what you're looking for.
Yep.
So I think one of the things you're saying is you need the demand to show up.
Yeah.
Right. So what are you doing on that side to kind of go drive demand for, getting to your 1,000 and then, being able
we need more clients. I mean, we've been really focused on particular types of clients. So we have some of our clients have been amazing. They have teams of kind of 50 to 75 people that are working for them. And so that type of client is really great for us because it provides very consistent work for our Odettans. We do sales, so it's just a B2B machine. And I think we probably need to do a lot more in marketing to tell our story so more people could use us. I mean, the truth is that outsourcing pre-pandemic was being used, it wasn't necessarily mainstream as much as it is now, but that was one of the big shifts in the pandemic that most small businesses, every tech startup is outsourcing. And so they're really trying to figure out like who are their partners and how do they do this? And it's being done. And so we really kind of accelerated a lot with the pandemic. And I think there's a lot more we can do in terms of just like sharing our story with companies, what we're good at specifically, so they know how to leverage us.
That is amazing. I have rapid fire questions for you now. But I think one of the things that has been really awesome about your story is your level of commitment is so high. Your level of compassion and care is so high. Your vision and your mission are super clear. And I definitely want to know what we can do to help, because like it's a pretty compelling story that I hope you have a lot of runway to tell.
Yeah.
So super good. Well, a couple of questions. So aside from the people in the Middle East and South Asia, what's your favorite part about visiting that part of the world?
Gosh, probably the most striking are the sounds. Just being there, getting off the plane. For me, it was the most extraordinary thing is just listening to the calls to prayer. So in Jordan and Pakistan, 5 times a day, there's this kind of sound that goes off that reminds people to kind of, stop their worldly matters and like go inside and pray. And it's this beautiful sound. And so, that was my favorite part. actually.
Well, do you still go to Pakistan?
I am going at the end of this year.
You are?
So yeah, now we have a lot of people to meet in person who I haven't met.
So you haven't been back since that first trip? That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. So you used to live in San Francisco. Which do you enjoy the most between San Francisco or NYC, and why?
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I feel like I'll make enemies here. I love New York. I'm a New Yorker.
Compelled to say that.
I love New York. I love the energy. Yes. So, New York is just the energy of the people, and you can just kind of like walk out for a break and just walk anywhere. It doesn't matter. And just kind of like this endless discovery. And why, you know what, I will say though, San Francisco, I'm very into nature and to camping outside. And so I had these like amazing weekend trips where I would take my car and go to Big Sur. And I don't think you're allowed to do this, but I would drive to Big Sur, and then they have these overlooks, and I would wait until kind of like the cops were gone, and I would park there and then sleep there. And I would do that. I've done that so many times, and it's just like amazing to wake up on the cliffs of Big Sur.
Oh my goodness.
So amazing.
Well, on the New York side, like, are you a pizza person?
Yeah.
What's your favorite place to get pizza?
So I think Brooklyn has better pizza than Manhattan.
Now you're an enemy. You're creating enemies within enemy territory.
I know, gosh, it's terrible. But I will say that, I think for a pizza place to be good, it has to be nearby. Like, who wants to?
This is true.
Go so far and like sit down and like wait in lines, and I mean,
Do you mean you don't want to be Dave Portnoy that goes all over the U.S. to find pizza places?
I want a place where it's like late at night and I need a slice of pizza. So I go to Village Pizza, 13th and 8th. It's right near where I live. It's fantastic.
Okay, all right. Well, that's good. Well, what's a must-see attraction that's kind of off the touristy list in NYC?
Cloisters. I go to the Cloisters.
Okay.
Have you been there?
I've not been there.
It's kind of like this museum that is overlooking the Hudson River, and it's really peaceful, actually. Yeah. It's a good place to get peace in the city of lights.
Well, there you go. Well, give a shout out to your brothers. What are their names? And what's one word that they'd use to describe you?
Oh gosh. Okay, so it's kind of like Good Will Hunting, but my brothers are James, and then I'll do order of birth, which is really important in our family. James. And then Andrew within the quads now. So Andrew was 2 minutes older than me. It was Andrew, then myself, and then Jeffrey, then John. And they'd probably say some mixture of like kind of like super independent or determined and adventurous. Like, as I was always going like some far-flung location.
Yeah. Yeah. Are they travelers?
Yeah. We're kind of all travelers, but
Do you travel in a wolf pack?
No, we don't like to. Yeah, I know. We like to. I mean, it's funny. When I was in my 20s, I moved to Southeast Asia, and I had a brother who was living in Hong Kong and then Tokyo.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and then my other brother lives in Singapore, and then I have one in Berlin. But like, so we kind of like quest for being unique. Coming back to that, like everyone got their location and learned their language. It's like I own France because I speak French.
Okay.
And it's like we all have our different locations that we live, but we don't ever live in the same location.
So you don't travel in a wolf pack?
No, never.
Totally understand. All right. Well, if you could place a billboard on a street that only girls on bicycles ride by or ride on the street, who? Hold on. This is a long question. Just a second. Okay, if you could place a billboard on a street that only little girls rode by and could see, what would you have on there and why?
Yeah, that's easy. I would have your dreams are valid, exclamation point, and be really, kind of like a big sign. I think the message is not to lose yourself. And even if you're in an environment where your dream seems outsized or you don't know anyone else who has that same dream, that it is valid and it is yours for the taking.
That is so, so good. Well, what is the thing that you're looking forward to most in the next 3 months?
I'm going to Sicily.
Oh my gosh, you're a traveler. It's like everywhere. Okay, so are you going to Catania?
Maybe, I don't know yet.
Oh my goodness.
Should I go to Catania?
Yeah, I would go to Catania.
Oh, wow.
That's where so I've been to Sicily, spent a lot of time in Catania. It's beautiful and the
we'll
pizza's
go there.
amazing.
Oh, wow. I am going
Go
with
see the volcano.
Oh yeah, I think we are going to do that. I'm doing that with one of my best friends, and she's a chef, so she's organizing most of the itinerary, and I'm very excited.
Amazing. That's amazing. We'll enjoy that. It was great to have you, Catherine.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.